Welcome to Talking Jets. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside my lovely co-pilot, Mr. Dom C. Dom, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, Ryan. Yourself, man.
Hanging in there, not too shabby. Feeling a little bit more optimistic about our Jets than I think I was otherwise thinking I was going to feel heading into the offseason. I like what we've done so far. I'm excited to chop
Me
it
too.
up with you.
Yeah.
Boys and girls, as you come on in, hit that like button for us. It goes a long way towards letting other people know this is a show worth watching. If you guys are in, we got two streams going out. We got the vertical stream and we've got the horizontal one. So if you're in the vertical one and you want to click over to the horizontal one, feel free to jump over. We do have a poll question in the chat. What route do you prefer at 4, 16, 33, and 44? There's 4 different options listed in there. You guys can kind of look at what I put in and see what your thoughts are. Edge, Simpson, receiver, safety. Edge, wide receiver, guard, safety. Linebacker, safety, wide receiver, quarterback. BPA, 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 BPA. You guys can vote on that in the live chat. Dom, since we have talked last week to this week, we've had a few new additions added onto the team. We did know some of them by the time you and I hopped on Monday night, but for the most part, a lot of stuff happened over the course of the last week. So what are your thoughts on how the Jets have approached free agency, or how they've approached free agency so far?
Well, I mean, I've liked some of the moves that they've made. I liked the fact that, what's the best way to phrase this? I think you needed to have an adult in the room, right? I think you needed to have an adult in the room. And unfortunately, we learned last year that adult wasn't going to be Aaron Glenn. He just wasn't going to, things seemed to get a little funky and go awry. And, internally, and, people started asking for trades and wanting to get out. And, Quinnen quietly did it. I respect. Jermaine Johnson quietly did it. I respect. They kind of made the decision to cut ties with Sauce, who everyone thought was, the main reason Aaron Glenn was coming here, right? Mm-hmm. So you had a lot of that kind of stuff. You saw some things that you didn't like, and Aaron Glenn now needed to kind of bring in his captain, and not captain, but like somebody to kind of be the grown up in the locker room. And that's what he did in guys like David Onyemata, in guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick, and guys like Demario Davis. Now Davis is still producing at a high level, which is wild. Still, he's been a top 8 rated linebacker per Pro Football Focus for the past 7 years. Mm-hmm. He's 37 years old. It's crazy. And David Onyemata, I think, still serves a purpose. So they brought in some of that veteran leadership. You had the second youngest team in the league. You needed some of that, and you filled a bunch of holes on defense, right? We talked about it. I didn't think they were ever going to shop at the top end of free agency. The big names. I think the biggest move they made might have been the, either the Demario Davis signing, which was 2 years. Mm-hmm. 2 years. In essence, it's a 2-year. I believe it's a 2-year, $20 million contract.
Yeah, 2 for 22 is what it's written as, but I don't know if he's going to see all that across the 2 years.
Yeah, and then you have the trade for Minkah, which they said 3 for 40, but in essence that's a 2 for 20. Mm-hmm. You have clean outs after that, with some dead money, but that's neither here nor there. So they were going to be bargain shopping, and they did. They filled some holes. I really like Dane Belton. I think Dane Belton's going to be I think he's a really good rotational safety. He's not the savior. He's not going to be, your next All-Pro, but he's a guy at the back, who's kind of carved out a good niche role for himself, playing special teams and being the third safety. And actually, he started a lot last year for the Giants. And he's, a sure tackler, something that we haven't had from the safety room. We moved on from Tony Adams and brought in a sure tackler like Dane Belton, which is really nice. The Cisco thing, kind of, I'm confused on that, but it's not necessarily. Listen, he got he got it's a $1.25 million tryout, for the next couple months. We're not locked into him, but if you wanted to bring him back, why not do it before Wednesday? When his $4.5 million dead cap hit kicked in, or contract voided and dead cap hit. So, you could have probably extended that and, made some of that money go away, just ripped it up and done something new. But I don't know, man. That one confuses me a little bit. Outside of that, they brought in they raised the floor on the defensive side of the ball. That's exactly what they did, is they raised the floor. Gone are the days when we're going to be dependent on the, the Peyton Pages of the world, or the Eric Watts of the world, or the Michael Clemens of the world, who got himself a fat contract. You know what I mean? So you raise the floor and you put more talent on the defensive side, and you did so without really committing any big money for long term. The longest contract, I know Ossai's is a 3-year deal on paper, and Minkus a 3-year deal on paper, but in essence, they're both 2-year contracts. Everything else is a 1-year contract. So.
Yeah, I liked what we did. It's funny, we got to see a little bit of Brees chirping a little bit about, we have so much money to go around to all these players. And it's like, dude, you realize you were extended the highest value contract. $14.5 million is more than any other player got that we brought in this offseason. So I like the approach. I thought it was really smart by Muji. I thought you were able to, like you said, raise the floor of the defense. I think they focused mainly on leadership. I like the kid from Chicago, right?
Oh yeah, I forgot about him too.
He's probably, I would say, the right move and the Fitzpatrick move were two of my favorites. I didn't watch a lot of Belton, but from what I've seen, people do like him. So
yeah. I think my favorite move, I should say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
Cade York proves my point. Don't need to draft a kicker.
You're so full of shit, because Cade York is a terrible kicker, and 100% we're going to lose some games. I've been saying this on this show and during the Talking Jets show and all these other things. You sign a bad kicker in a year, you're not expecting to win games. You're going to wind up losing games on the margins, and you're not going to be able to realize it, and you're going to get higher draft.
Listen, they're going to bring in competition for him during
100%.
Camp.
Yes.
They're not going to do it. It's going to be the Harrison Mevises of the world, a UDFA to come and compete with him. And maybe he beats him out, maybe not. But listen, I like the idea. I'll say this. I'm not standing here for Cade York, But what does he have that Nick Folk did? A big leg, right? A big leg. With these new kicking rules, if you can get the ball to the 40-yard line, which, there are situations where you could start at the 40-yard line, you really don't need to get the ball 15 yards and be in range. That's what some of these teams are doing. Jacksonville, they got to move the ball 15 yards before they're in scoring range.
Are you telling me kicker's really important? Might be worth a draft pick kind of important?
Not important. Not worth a draft pick. Very important, not worth a draft pick. Big legs can get it done. So
I very much think
I got my shirt, by the way.
You did get it?
I did get it.
I was trying to send it to you without you knowing about it, and when I clicked send, it auto put your email back in there, and I was like, crap. I was trying to surprise him on it. But yeah, we made a shirt for Dom. Let me see if I have the thing up. I can pluck it real quick. Dom has been adamant about not bringing in a kicker, and I understand what his thought process is.
I'm not saying not bringing a kicker.
He's just wrong. We changed the number and stuff, but this is the Dom C doesn't want a kicker shirt.
I'm not saying don't bring in a kicker. I'm saying don't waste a draft pick on a kicker.
Sure, whatever. Dom, check your mic real quick. You sound all right, but I think it may not be hooked up to the mic you got there.
Check.
I can hear you. Just make sure that's the one that's connected. Boys and girls, while Dom does that, if you click down in the description down below, if you want to join us for our Talking Jets draft party, first night of the NFL draft, we're going to be down in Hoboken. Myself, O'Leary, and Green Bean watching the entirety of the first round, getting your crowd reactions, getting our reactions. We're going to have $25 get you in the door, get you your first drink, and then you got $5 draft beers, $5 well drinks, $5 house wines, and 50% off apps all night long. We're looking forward to it. It's our favorite stream of the year. We're going live all 3 days, but we'll be in person in Hoboken. just 23 steps from the PATH train if you'd like to come out and join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun out there.
Ryan, check. Is that better?
I think so. I can't really tell. I think it's good. I think it's probably working. I could hear you loud and clear.
What does the chat say? Can you hear me?
Chat. Okay. Tank for Ty said before it was definitely the PC mic. I don't know if it necessarily is right now.
Just double check this here. I don't know why that would switch off. Tank for Ty, can you hear me better now? Give me a thumbs up.
Sounds tinny, says Paulo. Definitely PC mic. I mean, it's definitely like we could hear you. It's not like it's like a big problem at all. I think you're good. I was just, if it was an easy toggle or something, you could try it.
You gotta play around with it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all good. All right. So now that we've kind of gone through free agency, we saw that the defense was kind of elevated. The only offensive player that we added, now correct me if I'm wrong here, I think is Geno Smith, right? Like, well, I guess.
Dylan Parham.
Who was that?
Dylan Parham, the guard.
Oh, yes. Oh, you know what? We brought back Max Mitchell, brought back Andrew Beck. I didn't even see the Kenny Nwangwu return. That was nice.
Yeah. Hey, sorry, Ryan. Chat, give me a thumbs up.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah. So I got a new camera. If you guys notice, I'm a lot more clear. And with the camera, there's also a mic in the camera. So it defaulted to that. So I just switched it back to my actual mic. Is that better?
Interesting.
Is chat saying it's better?
The audio is definitely a lot better. I don't know if something happened with like the video feed. I mean, I can still see you, but there was like when you switched mics, there was like a clear like almost like try moving around. Oh, you're good. Okay. I think you just had to catch up. Perfect.
Very well. Let's rock.
All right. Okay. So Geno Smith, that's where we landed on at quarterback. What were your thoughts as far as the other options that could have been available to us, or what did you think of bringing in Geno and even trading for Geno? Does that even necessarily matter to you? I know it was like a late round pick swap, but what were your thoughts on the Geno signing?
I'm not the biggest fan. I understand what it is and why they did it. I still would have been I still would have rathered them, even if it meant some draft capital, going and getting a younger veteran to come in. Like, you know, I told you I was a big fan of Rattler. I was a big fan of Tanner McKee. Even if you want to bring in Geno, again, it costs, bare peanuts, mere peanuts, I should say. So I would have been a fan if you did that with one of these younger veterans to kind of compete. So I don't know what the plan is for backup quarterback at this point. There's some gripes and some grumbling about Will Levis, which, which is fine. If it's going to be a true competition, Will Levis and Geno Smith, let the best man win. Like that I'm open to that, because neither of those guys are going to be cheap. And I think it allows you to kind of, take a stab at quarterback if you want this year without having to do it early enough that would preclude you from, shopping in the franchise quarterback market next year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like bringing in Geno, I didn't think Geno was good last year. I thought he had a very, very bad year. I mean, maybe he rebounds, and what we saw in Vegas was more a product of a bad Raiders team and, bad offensive line and all that. Maybe that's what I saw last year. But I think we hit the right price point. Like, I wanted to go with a vet minimum guy. I had mentioned Tua. We had talked about Kyler. The Carr stuff has been floated around a bunch of times. Now I have no idea if Carr even comes out of retirement at this point. But Geno for the minimum, and then what we do at quarterback next is sort of an interesting conversation, because I do agree with you. I think I would like to see like a Levis type swing, but I think it pivots what you do in the draft. Or maybe I should say your plan for the draft will pivot what you do for backup quarterback. So I could see a situation where the Jets go after someone like Andy Dalton, and then that sort of tips their hand, to me at least, thinking they're probably going to go with someone like Ty Simpson in the draft. Someone that could be a little bit more of a mentor off the field, someone that can kind of take Simpson under his wing, and Geno can kind of do the quarterback thing. If he gets hurt, then obviously, Dalton goes in. If they go the Will Levis route, I agree with you. I think it's very much a quarterback competition. And then I think they're taking more of a mid-round swing on a quarterback. And that could, look like Aller, it could look like Nussmeier, it could look like Taylon Green. It could, have your flavor of the week quarterback, in the third, fourth round, something along those lines. But I think you're probably looking at utilizing your top 4 picks on the non-quarterback positions if you go like the Will Levis route. And I think that's the route I would feel more comfortable going. I like the idea of building up the roster, having a very attractive, roster for next year's quarterback class, not even just as, draft picks, but potentially as tradable assets or, to attract a head coach. Like, you're not overcommitting to the quarterback this year where you're leaving yourself hamstrung, like you said, and kind of kicking yourself out of the franchise market potentially for next year. So the Jets were slated to be at about a 5.5 win bet is what the Vegas had us at prior to free agency. It's still at 5.5, which is my understanding, unless something's changed. Do you think the moves we made are going to get us above that 5.5 win threshold, or do you think we're still kind of sitting somewhere, maybe a better product, but sitting around the same win total?
Yes, the latter. I'm not willing to say anything's changing right now. I mean, we're bringing in an offensive coordinator who's been out of the league for how long? A few years, at least 4 years.
Yeah, 22, I think.
Didn't do well in his last stop either. So you still don't have any. The blueprint for the offense really isn't, to me, crystal clear yet. So there's that as well. Like, what are we doing? What's the plan? How's it going to work? What's it going to look like? Who's Geno throwing to? Is Brees going to sign? You need more pieces on the offense. So hopefully those are all addressed, the last weekend of April when the draft happens, and there's a more definitive plan in place. But I'm not willing to say that we're much better than we were last year right now, record wise.
I'm going to go on record right now, and I'm going to say we're going to sign Brees Hall like the week they start calling about group buy tickets. It's going to be like, oh boy, Brees Hall signs his 3-year contract. We're ready and raring to go. We've got the players. We got the quarterback. It's going to be this whole thing. I think Brees ultimately gets his contract. I don't think he's going to play on the franchise tag. I think it's going to be something that allows us to pay him a little bit higher premium this year. That way, the contract, similar to Sauce, would be an advantageous contract to trade away. And it's almost like if Sauce didn't sign his contract, the Jets are not getting 2 first-round picks. The fact that the Jets had him on that contract got us the value that we got. So I think where Brees last year couldn't net us a 3rd-round pick, if we sign him to a 3-year deal and we've eaten the majority of the cap hit this year, it's going to be very attractive. And I think you can get yourself a 2nd or a 3rd-round pick based on, a much lower contract if traded away. But I agree with you. I think that, the ceiling hasn't necessarily changed. I think the floor has probably shifted a little bit. You might feel a little bit more comfortable. Like, I don't see us losing 3 straight weeks by like 25 points or whatever that number was. You know what? We made another trade. Trade happened today that I forgot we haven't talked about yet.
Oh my God, I forgot about that one too.
Justin Fields. I gotta give Muji his credit. There's no way I thought there was any way that Fields was going to get traded. I thought for sure this was going to be a June 1st cut. We were just kind of taking the money on the chin. It is what it is. Jets wind up saving like $3 million.
So in essence, I read it. The somebody eloquently put it. You got Geno Smith for free. You know, you were paying Justin Fields anyway, $10 million. So now you're paying 7 to Justin Fields and 3 to Geno Smith. It's the same exact thing as if you just had Justin Fields and cut him.
Yep.
Took the $10 million hit altogether. So
that's a great
now,
way to
or you move down a little bit in the set. So you got Geno Smith for free, but you move down 20 spots in round 7. You know, so be it.
That is all right with me. And I'll be the first one to say I'm not big on the Geno Smith signing or anything like that, but I think for $3 million or whatever we're paying Geno this year, like we're going to get light years better production than what we got out of Justin Fields last year for $20 million. So, you know, if for nothing else, this was just a very wise move on that front. Now, we've made all these moves. Is there another move out there leading up to the draft, whether it be a trade or just a free agent signing? Is there a player out there that you're kind of keeping your eye on still?
Good question, Ryan. Oof.
I got nothing. I'll be honest. There's no one out there that I can think of right now that I'm like, man, I would like
in
that.
the free agent market.
What about Brian Thomas Jr.? Like what? Like if there was like any smoke to the rumor of like him maybe getting moved by the Jags, is that something you'd sniff around at?
I don't think that's gonna happen if I'm being completely honest. Yeah, I'd sniff around at it and see what the price was. And I've been pretty adamant in saying that I think that the price is exactly what the Elijah Moore deal is. You know, maybe you give up 44, but you get BTJ and a third back, something like that.
I would do that in a heartbeat. If that was a thing. I feel like if there's any truth to the rumors of the Jets and Giants both being in on it, it's probably circulating around like that 33rd and 36th pick or whatever the Giants, I don't know what pick the Giants have in the second round, but I wonder if there's like, oh, we'll give you this top end second, but we want to see who's on the board at that top end second before we pull the trigger on it, kind of a deal.
Yeah, maybe.
If that was it, I would still do it. I think depending on who's on the board, obviously, but you're getting a wide receiver with 3 years left on a deal. You're only, you know, if you're drafting a receiver in the second round, you're getting a guy on a 4-year deal. You just have obviously the fifth year option is going to be much more expensive than the third and fourth year of a second round rookie. But you got a guy that's already, been proven at least 1 year. One conversation we did have last week with Matt and Green Bean was that if an offensive minded head coach is getting rid of Brian Thomas Jr., like, is that something you don't really want to sniff around at? Like, does that give you any pause at all?
Yeah, there's a reason. I think that's a great point, and a real legitimate one to boot. Is that, why is he for sale? Mm-hmm. Why is he for sale? Like what's broken? What's is it fixable? What's going on? Somebody's got to tell me that. Sure.
So, the thumbnail for this stream was a 2-round mock draft, and what are our thoughts on how things have shifted since the free agent period kind of kicked off and went underway? Has anything changed for you based on the players that we've signed in any capacity, altered the first 4 picks of the draft, or is your mindset still sort of similar to what it was prior to free agency?
I think my mindset is pretty dead set on what it was prior to free agency. I don't think it's fun. I don't think it's kind of swayed whatsoever. I think that for me, again, if I'm making a decision, I think number 2 is a front 7 piece on the defense, whether it's a hybrid guy like Arvell Reese, or whether it's a pure edge rusher like David Bailey or Reuben Bain, or whether it's a linebacker like Sonny Styles. It's got to be a front 7 piece. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is your offensive weapon, or number 16 is your offensive weapon. Mm-hmm. Again, this is assuming we keep all these picks, which I don't think we will. Number 33 for me would be another defensive piece, whether it's a safety, or probably more so for me, another defensive interior guy that can kind of play defensive tackle when we're even front and play 5 tech when we're in odd front, kind of replace David Onyemata next year, or Harrison Phillips again. Because remember, those guys, we talk about filling holes. It's not only filling holes for now. We have Harrison Phillips, Juwan Briggs, and David Onyemata as our defensive tackles / odd front defensive ends right now. They're all on 1-year deals. So you got to draft at some point to backfill some of that. So I think that's where I would probably aim there. And they pick 44 can be if you don't take a safety at 33, it could be a safety, it could be a linebacker, it can be a guard, it can be a bunch of different things. I think it's, dealer's choice if you can really go true BPA at that point.
Yeah, I would argue you could. I mean, I agree with you on the front 7 piece. 16, I do think weapon receiver is definitely where I think most fans would lie on this. I would say I start becoming more open at 16, 33, and 44, just going best player available. Like I could see an argument for Vega at number 16. If the receivers are gone, I could see, maybe there's a chance, Sadiq's the pick. I'd be a little surprised at that, I think. But then at the 33 and 44, I could just as easily see that be a wide receiver. I could see it be Pregnon. I could see it be a defensive tackle. It could be a safety. I think we have maximum flexibility when it comes towards the draft and how Muji has set us up. And to me, when I look at grading this free agency period so far, now obviously we haven't seen these guys on the field. We don't know how how the chemistry is going to be and all that. But to me, this was a B+ to an A as far as what I thought the Jets should have done. Not necessarily the grading of the skill of the players, 100%, but I think not overcommitting on the contracts, not overcommitting, at the quarterback position. Like you've kind of set yourself up to go best player available, give yourself the flexibility of winning games this year, but also having the ability to draft your quarterback if you're in position to get one next year. So I think I would give Muji, B+, A- or A, for this offseason so far.
Yeah. A might be a little tough for me to get
weird.
around.
It's like a curve kind of scale. Cause I'll say B concretely, cause I feel like A implies that you really got some nice pieces. And I don't know if I'm there on that. I think we're just at we plug the holes. We can get our best players in the draft the way it sort of should be.
Yeah. I can get with that.
JJ has a good comment here. I just wish we went younger. We went pretty old. Demario Davis, 37. One of the other guys, too, was 30. God, who was it? 35, was it?
Onyemata's 35, yeah.
Yeah. That I don't love. But at the same time,
yeah. But you know what? Yeah, I mean, you had the second youngest team in
correct.
In baseball or in football last year, not in baseball. They were not the youngest in baseball. They were the second youngest in football. So,
yeah, no, I think that was probably the correct decision. You have to be able to get some veteran leadership in here. I think there's only so much you could do with a young team. They're not going to know everything right off the bat. So, get the young guys in here. I'm all on board for. Which brings us to our conversation for tonight, right? If we've talked through our first 4 picks, JJ also adds Geno Smith is a nightmare. I'm not overly optimistic about Geno. I will say that much. But for where I thought we were going to be, I'm all right with it. So where we were talking about heading into this video tonight, we were kind of talking behind the scenes. We'd like to talk a little bit about offensive linemen. We'd like to talk a little bit about wide receiver, and we'd like to talk a little bit about tight end, trying to solve the offensive pieces of this team because we feel like we've brought that defensive side up enough, and we're probably going to have the primo defensive player at number 2 and probably another defensive player somewhere in the mix for the other 3 picks as well. Where do you want to jump off first? Is there a particular position you want to look at on the draft board?
Well, why don't we start at the wide receivers?
Okay.
Because I think that's going to be the most that's probably the most contentious position amongst all the fans.
Mm-hmm.
They have a what's the word I'm looking for? People are dead set. I've never seen it so much as I have this cycle is they are absolutely dead set in not wanting to take a wide receiver outside of round 1. Mm-hmm. They want a wide receiver in round 1. And, I think that I understand the concept. I understand the theory. I think that there's 3 guys that are on a tier. I think that there's one guy that's in a very, very close tier. I think I'd probably be comfortable enough saying, he's, we have 4 guys on one tier, and then after that it gets kind of murky. So I don't think that you're going to necessarily miss out on a wide receiver if you don't take one at 2 or 16. But I think the value and the projection of the player kind of really falls through a hole. You want to get your hands on a guy like Tyson, Lemon, Tate, or Omar Cooper Jr. I think you're missing, especially for the team that is so hungry at the position like the Jets. It would be a hard sell to a lot of fans, me included, if you said, "Hey, we have Garrett Wilson and we have, Jeremy Bernard, nice player, but it would be a really hard sell if you said, hey, here we are, we have Garrett Wilson and Antonio Williams. It's just not like it doesn't hold that true depth and weight. Even a guy like 𝐂𝐻𝐿, nice player. I don't know if he moves the needle enough for me in having a true weapon or a true option outside of Garrett. Again, we have A.D. Mitchell. We still don't know what A.D. Mitchell is. He's nice. I love the concept of A.D. Mitchell, but I think the concept of A.D. Mitchell is a lot better than A.D. Mitchell on the field right now. So, so for me, like, I think you got to really do everything in your power to land one of those 4 wide receivers. And, as free agency is kind of playing itself out through the first week, it's clear that they're going to address the wide receiver, at least in the draft, if not, and later on in free agency with some lower level guys and a draft pick. So I just don't know if you can really, really, really get out of 16 without one of those 4.
I see JJ's comment in here asking, do you think Maui Noah will be there at 16? I think we'll get back to that conversation when we start talking about the offensive line, so just hang tight with us. We will get back to that one. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my comment section here. There it is. Nope, that's not it. Up here. Okay. 𝐼𝐿 says people are dead set on wide receiver in round 1 because the Jets have an atrocious record of drafting wide receivers in the second round. I completely agree. I like a lot of the receivers that will be available on day 2. Primarily that top end of the second round. I do agree with Dom, though. I like the top 3 receivers. I would say I'm not to the point where I would want to move up at all for any of the 3 wide receivers. Like if all 3 are gone, then I could pivot to guard. I could pivot to tight end. I could pivot to maybe linebacker. But I don't think I would move up to try and get one of the 3. I'm cool with drafting our guy at 33 or 44 if need be. I don't think there's a massive difference. Like I think there's a tier difference, but I don't think it's somewhere that like you may not be able to address wide receiver in another capacity next year if you really wanted to. Do you think the second round uneasiness for Jet fans is why we're all thinking receiver in the first round, or do you think it's more so?
I think I absolutely think that's the case, but I don't know if that's. I just don't know. As a Jets fan, it's so hard. Like I just can't wrap my head around like how what happened with guys in the past that aren't part of this regime kind of weighs into anything that this regime or this draft class has to offer. You know what I mean? I wish, and again, I said that with after I said the statement that I'm doing everything in my power to leave with one of those top 4 guys. But if they didn't. I don't think the world would be over because we don't draft second round. We had no luck with second round receivers. I think I'd be disappointed because I think the talent, there's a clear precipitous drop off in the talent after the top 4. in my opinion.
Yeah, I very much. I think of the top guys, Tyson really intrigues me. The injury stuff scares the shit out of me with the MetLife turf, but like the knee injury that he had happened, I think it was 2022. So there's enough time to have passed where it's like, okay, he had a collarbone. All right, yeah, well that's bad, but that's not a reoccurring injury you're going to consistently have. The hamstring he had is definitely a little bit more concerning, but twitchy wide receivers, you kind of sort of get that. So I think his injury history is probably a little overblown for me. I like Lemon. I like Tate. As we scroll down, Cooper Jr. would be a lot of fun. I think Boston fits the size profile of receiver that I'd really like to see the Jets get. Someone that's a larger framed, go up and get it kind of receiver. Like when you're doing your calculation as far as wide receiver goes, does the height matter to you at all, or is it just separation? Like, what do you like about a receiver coming into this team?
So, and that's a fair question, because I do, obviously, I do a lot of film work and evals on all the prospects, and I have a tendency to, the guys that can create separation are always guys that seem to catch my eye more. For instance, we talked about A.D. Mitchell. Like, I loved A.D. Mitchell coming out of his class. You know what I mean? I absolutely adored A.D. Mitchell coming out of his class. And, there's a lot of people that are high on Keon Coleman, coming out of the same class. Not I. Like, that skill set. I love the big athletic guy, but if you can't create separation in college, you're damn well not going to create it, well at the next level. So for me, that's the first thing I'm looking at. Second thing I'm looking at is, where are they playing? Right. And again, it's not necessarily like, I'm not going to critique somebody better. Their film is going to really do the talking. But what I like in the receivers are guys that can separate and can do it from all over the field. Right. Garrett Wilson's a perfect example. You can play Garrett Wilson at X on the boundary, on the short side boundary. You can play him on the field side and as the Z or as the flanker. You can play him. You can put him in motion. He's agile enough and shifty, and has that lateral quickness that he can handle the slot as well. I love how he sets up his. I love how he sets up his routes. Like, to me, if he was a little bit bigger, I think he'd be the ideal wide receiver. I mean, guys like that, guys like Justin Jefferson, excuse me. Those are the types of receivers that I like. The guys that I don't like are the Keon Colemans and the Drake Londons and, Mike Evans. And I'm not saying Mike Evans is bad. Mike Evans is going to be a gold jacket Hall of Famer, but like that type of receiver is just not the ones that really, that are big, that are strong, that are physical at the catch point, and that, Mike Evans, case can blow the top off of the defense and just burn you deep like that. Like, those aren't the type of guys that my eyes get attracted to. So in this class, I love Jordan Tyson for that reason. You know what I mean? I love, I think Jeremy Bernard is that type of receiver. I think Skylar Bell from UConn is phenomenal guy. Now, he's a little bit smaller, so he might be slot specific, but I think he can handle at least the slot and the Z or the flanker, the wide side, where he might have to create, you might have to put him in motion or something like that to help, him get off of press coverage. He just might not be physical enough to handle that or quick enough to handle that. But man, you talk about a guy with good hands and phenomenal separation and route running skills. Skylar Bell's a guy that just, oozes that. You talk about, even guys like, Cyrus Allen from Cincinnati, who's more of a day 3 guy, but really, really good route runner. I mean, up and down the roster of these draft picks, there's all sorts of those types that I think I would like to really compliment Garrett Wilson. I have A.D. Mitchell. And A.D. Mitchell for me is fine as my boundary X guy. Take the top off the defense, be more your possession guy. And then I'd like to get something who can be a true complement, a Z slot/Z, complement to Garrett Wilson, so you can move those guys around like chess and play chess with them.
Yeah, when I look at the receiver room, I think, or when I look at the receiver board, I really sort of limit my view as like the 44th pick and lower, like and higher in the draft. Like you're looking, pick 16, 33, 44. I don't really find myself thinking that we're going to double dip at wide receiver. It's not necessarily that we can't do it, because maybe you get a big tall guy on day 3 that you just like for those red zone sort of situations. But getting that alpha number 2 is probably where most people kind of land on this. Do you see them double dipping at receiver at any point, or is it kind of that top end guy and then they'll just sort of round out, other positions with depth for day 3?
Well, I mean, the question is where, how many picks do they have now, Ryan, after,
is it 10?
All said and done?
Let me see.
See
what the updated one is.
I think it's 10 as well. But,
yeah, 10 sounds right. Jets have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks.
Okay. So I still don't know if they're going to use all 9 picks. So, they're going to move up.
This may not account for the Fields trade, though, so it is possible.
The Fields trade to 2027 6th.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yep. All right. So it says we got 9. Per
yeah.
Tankathon.
So, because we gave our 10th away for Geno Smith.
That's what it was. Okay. No, didn't we got a pick back for that, though? We gave away a 6th, got a 7th. So that was a net even swap. There's another trade in there that I think we're missing. Because I feel like we had 11 at one point.
Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Okay, that could make some sense then.
Yep, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Yeah, we had 11, but we lost one because one of the comp picks didn't qualify. So we went from 3 comp picks to 2, and then we lost one in the Minkah trade. So
gotcha.
So yeah. So where are they going to double dip? I don't think you're going to see too high, high picks taken in wide receiver. I could see a round 1 and a late round 3 guy to fill out the roster type. Maybe a special team, return type guy. As a dart throw, I don't know, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's, I'll just say, Jordan Tyson, and then it's a day 3, like true boundary type X possession guy. Like, I don't know, Reggie Virgil, like Jacoby Lane. And I'm not standing for either of those guys. I'm not very high on either of those, but those are the 2 big body type guys that that came to mind.
That could complement.
Yeah, that could kind of fill out the room, because from with all intents and purposes, I think they're fine playing Isaiah Williams, some handful of reps from the slot, right? The question is that I don't know what Frank Reich's offense is really going to look like, or what it's going to be. Is it 11 personnel? Is it more heavy personnel? Does he want his slot receivers to be big slots? Does he want them to get more vertical? Does he want his slot players to play horizontal? Because there's different aspects to the West Coast offense and West Coast principles that guide that. Like what's the guy he was coaching? I can't think of his name. Kevin Stefanski.
Yes.
He played a West Coast guy. Outside zone concept, run, play action, pass, but he played more of a vertical, whereas the true Shanahan style West Coast offense plays much more on a horizontal plane.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it depends on what type of Isaiah Williams is fine if you want to play on the horizontal. Those quick cuts in and outs and stuff like that. Those little
drags across the middle.
Those drags, those choice routes and stuff like that. Yes. And then, Stefanski's model, you take Harold Fannin and you press him vertically and play that mismatch off of linebackers with the big slot and so on and so forth. So it really just depends. I don't know what Frank Reich's going to want.
Catch up a little bit on Super Chats here. We got JJ saying, how can you pass on Reese at number 2? I think they could. I think it's just a matter of what they want. I would lean heavy favorite as Reese as the number 2 overall pick.
Yeah, I would not pass on Reese at this point, unless I'm given a deal that is too good to turn down.
Yeah,
like if you saw, I know it was going around Twitter today. I don't know who posted it, but
it's like Salah
one of the big guys, had Salah coming up to 2, and went down. Got 437 and a 4th rounder next year or something like that. Like, okay, fine, give it to me.
Yeah.
And I think they still landed Reese there in that specific situation.
But. Yeah, I think Cardinals went Bane in that situation, so I would be fine with making that move. But I agree with you. I think Reese makes a ton of sense. JJ says, for amusement purposes, I could live with Lovett too. I can't see any way the Jets would make that selection at 2. I would hope we would be trading out for a team that really wants to make that selection. Any chance you would ever entertain the idea of drafting Love at number 2?
He's definitely worthy of the number 2 selection. I will say that in this draft class. I just don't necessarily think I would take any running back at number 2. I seem to be, my, old man, curmudgeon ways, like think like I'm of the belief, like, hey, running backs, get it for 4 years, run them into the ground, wash, rinse, and repeat. I'm not paying, I'm not drafting, I'm not using super high capital on running back, and I'm not giving him a second contract.
JJ says Chris Brazzell works for me on day 2. I like the size. I like the speed. Anything to add on Brazzell?
With Brazzell, it's always going to be, like you said it right. Like, he's tall, he's long. He's got some, really, really good speed for a guy who's not that big per se. Like he's 6'4", 6'4" and change. It's only about 200 pounds. He's pretty strong at the catch point, which is, really good. He doesn't drop the ball, especially on 50-50s, but again, you get a guy who's coming from Tennessee, and I'm not trying to scout the helmet, but it's, it's a reality. They're just not, he's very limited on the routes that he ran in Tennessee, so I just don't know how that's going to separate. And again, like the speed advantage that he had over collegiate defensive players, he's not going to have over NFL players. So that being you tie that in with the limited route tree that he has, I'm a little bit concerned. There's no sort of sell whatsoever in his routes. It's go routes, it's posts, and it's hitches. And you can tell when he's going to run a hitch. You can tell when he's running the post, and you can tell when he's running the go.
Not going to catch
NFL teams are going to eat that up. Is he going to win a 50-50 ball here and there? Yes. You know what I mean? But I'm just wondering how he's going to really, really be able to, be a effective route runner and create the necessary separation.
Bourne comes in, says, I think I understand Dom's aversion to kicker. Dom is Superman with the draft, except for kicker. Kicker is his kryptonite. Now I have compassion. So I think Dom is just completely wrong on wanting to draft a kicker versus not wanting to draft a kicker. I trust Dom's judgment on most draft things. I just think Dom's entirely wrong on this particular topic. And I won't relitigate it, but if you want to check out the Dom C is wrong draft a kicker shirt, talkingjets.com. We got the shirt over there. Dom, do you have it near you by chance? Can you hold it?
It's upstairs.
Dang.
My wife folded it and put it in the drawer.
JJ comes in and says the Jets will trade up to 32 and take 𝐿𝐼 for the 5th-year option.
Oof.
I don't think we're trading up for 𝐿𝐼. I could definitely see a situation where the Jets trade up to, I think it's pick 30 is where the Broncos are. That, to me, that relationship that Muji has with the front office of the Broncos feels like if there's a player that he's sniffing around, that's the landing spot that we might wind up at.
I think if Ty Simpson is the target for a trade up, I think it's going to have to be earlier than that. Because Buffalo is going to be looking to trade down for sure. And I could see it's going to be Arizona and the Jets. Which one pulls the trigger to trade up for Ty Simpson?
I get the feeling based on our moves that we may not be gung-ho one way or the other. So like we might be all right, moving up to 30 and taking Simpson and then still maybe going quarterback next year. I think if you start playing that like game of, okay, you're going to have to give up a 2027 first to get back further into the first, or you're talking a little bit more draft capital, then I think you're having the conversation of like, okay, we're fine not getting him at that point. That's the vibe, at least. We heard a rumor today that Woody has anointed Muji as like the main shot caller, and Glenn's taking a little bit more of a backseat role. And I would say that seems or appears to be factual based on the moves that we made in free agency. And, we didn't overcommit trying to save Glenn's job. It feels very much like we're building towards the future as opposed to kind of going all in for the now, which I'm glad if that conversation was had by Woody. I think it was one of the smarter decisions that we have made so far. So is there another quarterback other than Simpson that, fans are kind of talking about that you could either see the Jets moving up to go get, or based on the moves we've made so far, is there a guy that maybe you're kind of circling, and then we'll move over to the tight end conversation?
I think if they trade up for someone, it's going to be for Ty Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't trade up for someone, I don't see them. I mean, if they don't get Simpson, I don't see them necessarily trading up for anyone. I would like, and I know I'm in the minority of this one, guys, but I would like, I would like to see them take a shot at a Garrett Nussmeier, because I think he's a really talented kid, who just, battled through a lot of injury stuff over the past couple of years, and he's a ball player, man. He's son of a coach. Good arm. If you can temper him down and get him to stop playing all that hero ball and putting the ball in harm's way, I think if nothing more, you have yourself a viable backup for a long-term backup that can spot start in a pinch. I know there's a real contingency that likes Drew Allar. I like Drew Allar's build. I like, he's got a strong arm, but that's about it. That's where that's where it kind of ends for me for Drew Allar. Like, there's just something off in the way he plays quarterback, and I want nothing to do with it. So, give me Nussmeier. You want to take a late shot, a day 3 shot on Cole Payton, I'm here for it. Just because, in talking with him down in Mobile, like, that guy's got his head on straight. I don't know how well he can play football yet, but he's got a cannon of an arm. He will run through your chest, not around you, which I love, and he gives you, some options if you want to have a goal line package. Gives you some options if, you need to throw a 65-yard Hail Mary while he really learns how to play the position. So that's where I'd go. Nussmeier, Payton, I think.
I think the nice thing about Nussmeier, too, and you brought it up briefly there, was we're going to need a backup quarterback at some point, and I feel like Nussmeier could be that. Do you think that it would have to be like a second-round pick, or it's winding up somewhere in the third? Like, I just can't see him making
I think there's a good chance he could even make it into round 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
I mean, probably third, but definitely more so round 4. Like,
I think we end up with a third-round pick at some point anyway. Like, I think that we could get him. He doesn't strike me as, like, out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Hustler says, to be honest, I like Bailey's tape better than Reese. Brief comments on Bailey.
I think Bailey's a little bit more one-dimensional than Reese. I think that's fair to say, and that one dimension is very good. He's fantastic. He knows how to get home. He knows how to get at the pass rusher. Knows how to cause havoc in there. I just wonder. My biggest concern with Reese is twofold. One, I don't know how if he's a net positive or a net negative early in his career, if teams kind of circle him and run at him. If that's the case, you could be in trouble. And two, although I absolutely think that he's a phenomenal pass rusher, he does a lot of it with speed, and I'm just wondering if that's going to be able to translate as well as it did in college. So,
no way Reich drafts Simpson. 𝐼𝐼 is a Reich type style quarterback. I mean, he did draft Young, which is not your stereotypical Reich.
I don't know if he drafted.
I know. That's the Tepper argument, and did the owner step in? I think 𝐼𝐼 is going to be an interesting puzzle piece to see.
I think 𝐼𝐼 is more the physical type that Reich wants. I think Carson Beck is the physical type that would appease to Reich as well.
God, he just strikes me as like a forever backup Beck. Like I can't.
That's exactly what he is.
Yeah.
That's, you're hoping his best case scenario is that he is
like a 10-year backup.
He's like a 10-year backup. It could come in, spot start, hold the fort down for 3 weeks as a game manager and not lose your season. But that's what you're getting in round 5 and 6.
Sure.
Unless you find Bryce Purdy.
Cashmere comes in and says, would you trade a second-round pick for Addison or Harrison? I'll admit I haven't really watched a whole lot of Addison recently, but I would do it for Harrison.
I love Jordan Addison.
Mm-hmm.
I actually thought, to be honest with you, he was a guy that I circled that I thought would be available via trade market.
Mm-hmm.
And that way I think would really complement Garrett very well. Problem with Jordan Addison is he's got off the field issues. Like, he just might not be long for the league.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like with Harrison, you're kind of gambling on the change of scenery, and there just feels like there's too much ceiling there with Harrison that after moving on from your quarterback, it seems like it would be unlikely that you would try to do that now.
Correct.
We'll see. All right, let's jump over to the tight end side of things.
Sure.
And then we'll go over to the offensive line side. So, tight end, where do you see the Jets potentially going? Like, at what maybe portion of the draft? Like, do you see this as a top 2 round?
No, this is a day 3 selection for the Jets.
All right, so let's.
I just
down.
don't. After.
We'll go down to like.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We'll go down to like Michael Trigg as our first guy, and then we'll kind of work our way down from there. Is there a tight end that you're kind of identifying in that day 3 realm that you like?
Well, if you look at the tight end room as you have it right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about the big guy that they got. What's his name? He came over last year. They signed him as a free agent. He never played.
Oh yeah.
Somebody help me out in the chat.
Yep, they're gonna get it. It's everyone liked him. The name popped off the
Isaiah Likely, not
Isaiah Likely. It was God damn it. I'm trying to think of it before it pops up. God damn it. I'm not gonna.
He played for Reich for fucking A.
It was. Come on, Chad, help us out here. Not Stone Smart.
Jelani Woods. Thank you.
There it
Thank
is.
you,
Kev Chatter.
Yeah. So I don't know if he's really long for the for our room or whatnot, but I'm talking about Mason Taylor and I'm talking about Jeremy Ruckert.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Ruckert's here for another year. You paid him $5 million. So you think he's got some sort of value. I just don't know where that value is.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's probably definitely as more of your blocking, your move tight end, a guy you put in motion and kick out on the defensive ends or line up, in big formations and, kind of help on the defensive ends. And they got Mason Taylor, who's, definitely more of an inline tight end as well, and is a very good receiver, but limited on the, what he does with the ball in his hands afterwards. So, you started there at Michael Trigg. Now, taking the player himself out of the equation, I think that type of tight end is exactly the guy I would target. And when I say that type, he's a bigger, he's got a bigger frame, but he can move, man. He can do the things in the pass game that Mason Taylor hasn't done yet, right? Mason Taylor is a guy that's going to work from the line of scrimmage out to about 9-10 yards. Trigg is the guy that's going to get the ball in his hand. He's going to force missed tackles. He's going to, be able to outrun guys up the seam and create separation. He's going to be the guy who, runs a much more varied and detailed route tree, who does a little bit more from the slot. So a guy like Trigg is perfect. I mean, he led the nation in missed tackles last year
17
from all the tight ends.
Yeah, 17
from all the tight ends.
Third. So I only 2 guys in the country better than him, according to PFF.
Yeah, I said, yeah, I thought it was. I thought he was.
Class.
Anyhow, then maybe that's it. Then maybe it's top of the draft class. So he's just like, that's the type of guy that I want, who is and Trigg himself is a really, really experienced guy. He's been around the block. He's 24 years old. Ton of starts, 3 different colleges. So he played in a bunch of different systems, and he's, except for his time at Ole Miss where him and Lane Kiffin didn't jive, he's been pretty successful. So that's the kind of guy that I want. That's what you thought you were getting Stone Smart last year, and that didn't work out. You know what I mean? Justin Jolie's another guy very similar to that mold, where he's more big slot than he is interior or F tight end, if you will. It's a guy that ran almost 50% of his plays from the slot. He's got special team experience. He's an end zone. He's a red zone threat at 6'4". I like Justin Jolie a lot, a whole heck of a lot. He's my second rated tight end in the entire class. So I'm a lot higher on him than 125. That's for sure.
So like if you're going into round 4, you're kind of maybe circling that position.
Yeah, I don't think Jolie reaches 4. I think there's a chance Trigg will.
Mm-hmm.
So Trigg is a guy that I like in that area. Oscar Delp from Georgia is another seam threat that is a guy that I like in that area. Who's kind of a little bit like that skill set. Tanner Koziel, I'm a little bit lower on him, but I think he's got that skill set that also would complement very well. He's a big guy. He's I think he's pushing 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah, I think 6'7" is what I've seen him at.
Yeah, but he moves like a guy who's not 6'7", 250. He can get up the seam, and he's just naturally like the catch radius and the contested catch stuff is just ridiculous. He's going to be a double-digit touchdown scorer just for his red zone prowess. So
I would rather go Tanner Koziel. How do you pronounce it?
Koziel.
Like if I'm kind of like thinking critically here, I like the idea of going with, the 6 foot to 6'2" wide receiver in the first round called Tyson at 16, and then going Koziel at later on in the draft with the big body. Like I don't necessarily need a wide receiver to be 6'5". If I get a 6'7" tight end that has 20 contested catches, I think is what he had listed. Yeah, first in the country with tight ends with at least 25 targets.
Yeah, and he had a contested catch rate pushing 75%.
That's nuts.
So 3 out of every 4 contested catch rate he makes. Not going to be the athlete that a guy like Michael Trigg is. Not going to have nearly the wiggle that Michael Trigg has. But you talk about production.
3 years as a starter. That's nice.
Yeah,
at least 3.
Yeah, and he did it. He was all MAC. I think he played somewhere before Houston. I think it was, I don't know if it was Ball State or if it was Miami of Ohio. One of the two.
And before the season, he was a top 100 player.
Yeah, he still doesn't drop the ball. I think for a career, he's at like 4%, man.
2.6 last year. So yeah, I'd have to see what his full.
Yeah, he's lean. And he's slim. I think he can take more. I think he can put on more mass, put on more muscle. The problem is he's 6'7.5". So in line, he's just not gonna win a lot because he's gonna have like tall tackle problems. You know what I mean? Where he's just gonna lose the leverage. He's just gonna lose the leverage.
Too gangly.
So he's got to do his work. I probably wouldn't put a ton more mass on him. I would probably try to get him a little bit more agile and really take advantage of those mismatches in size and then add speed to it. And a guy like that,
like a small nickel corner or something like that, or like
absolutely, or a linebacker.
Linebacker, yep, same thing. Get a 6 foot guy, 6'1" guy. Any other in the
well, we talked about I talked about Oscar Delp a little bit. I mean they have him very low. I happen to be a little bit higher on Oscar Delp. I have like a late 4th round grade, early 5th round grade on him. He's a guy who just he looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. I think that's the perfect way to explain it. We've talked about that type of player where he's got everything that you want. He just hasn't been able, for whatever reason, hasn't been able to put it together. Like, he is a phenomenal athlete. He runs routes smooth. He breaks off the stem on the routes like a wide receiver. He's a gritty, really good effort blocker for a guy who's not, super huge, but he just doesn't. Reminds me a lot like Drew out. Like a lot like Drew Allard. Like, the expectations were always so good because it was so evident of the skills, that he had, but he just never produced. Now you could say it's because he sat behind Brock Bowers and and they run the ball. They want to run the ball more in Georgia and this that. And Brock Bowers wasn't there this year, and the running game sucked. And he put up a stinker, 260 yards total, 1 touchdown this year. Just never really became the force that I thought. And then you're talking like super late guys, man. RJ Maryland at SMU is a guy that that I actually really think is a good ball player. He had himself a really good bowl series, really good all-star series. I know the Jets had talked to him already in the past, but again, he's more of your Stone Smart build, like your smaller, shiftier, kind of big slot type tight ends. Again, something that I think is a really good compliment to the 2 guys that we have in the room already.
Let's jump over any other tight ends you want to hit on before we jump over to the offensive linemen.
I mean, there's tons of them, but like I said, I think I've talked about the type that I like. Eli Stowers is the prototypical type of that, of that tight end, but I think he's going to be gone too early for the Jets.
So offensive line, I feel like we kind of go any number of directions here. We did sign the guard from the Raiders, which you're hoping you kind of get a little bit more of a bounce back year for him. Maybe it was the lack of surrounding pieces with him, and it's not just solely his skill level that was a detriment. Now that we've brought him in, I want to say, was it $10 million a year-ish, $11 million maybe? $7 million. Okay. So less than Simpson. So we basically got, and like stats-wise and like penalty-wise, it feels like the 2 players were somewhat comparable. So if let's say you had brought Simpson back on a 2-year contract, I think you're still looking to bring in a guard, but I don't know if it's necessarily forcing you to go as high. I think it's more of like you get stuck and you want to draft the best player available and it happens to be a guard. Cool. If not, you could address it in like the mid rounds of this draft. We've kind of gone over Ioane and Pregnon a bunch of times. Anything you want? Yeah,
Basantis as well.
Yeah.
No, I think those 3 names. I mean, I think I think that Vega Ioane is an elite prospect. I think he's for me, probably him and Caleb Downs are the closest thing to sure things as they come in this draft class. He's a top 10 talent for me. I think he's going to be a plug and play all pro level guard sooner rather than later. So the Jets fans are, they almost don't want to draft a lineman as much as they almost don't want to take a wide receiver outside of round 1. But he's a guy I would make the exception for. Outside of that, like, it's fine. Like, I get it. If it came down to wide receiver or Ioane, I'd probably take the wide receiver just because I think that the depth of the interior class is better than the depth of the wide receiver class.
I would agree. I think I'd be hard pressed to pass on one of the top 3 guys at receiver for a guard. I think if all 3 receivers are gone and you don't love Simpson and maybe you're not high on drafting tight end and Sadiq, like then I start landing on like the linebacker or guard conversation. I like Pregnon a lot in the second. Basantis we've talked about. Let's move towards like the 4th round. Let's say we're, I guess we could always end up with a 3rd round pick, but let's say we're looking more in like the day 3 realm of things. Is there a particular player that sort of stands out to you? I have guard and center both highlighted on this currently.
Yeah. So for my board, when I talk about starting to get into the 4th round, guys that I have 4th round or later grades on, Jake Slaughter, the center from Florida, I think is a phenomenal, really all around, lunch pail kind of guy. He's a center, true and true. I think he can handle himself. I think he handles himself ridiculously good in pass pro. I think he could be a really, really good outside zone or in, IZ type, center, blocking in movement and in space. I think he's just a little light in the pants, which I think hurts him. I think he needs to gain some weight and some more, functional, some more that'll help, kind of his anchor against the pass. It'll help him be more of a people mover, against the run as well, more of a drive blocker than he is more of an get out and on the arc and use leverage. But he's a guy I think that could start in the league for a while. Logan Jones, almost the same exact thing. I think Logan Jones might be technically more sound than Jake Slaughter is. I know Logan Jones has a lot more starts. He's a little bit smaller. He's got a little bit shorter arms. They both need to gain some weight and put on some more mass for some functional strength. But man, oh man, if I ran outside zone and I wanted a center that could peel off and get into the 2nd level and be a lead blocker out in screens and do all that stuff that the Kevin Mawais of the world did back in the day, that's Logan Jones.
He would hustle.
Man. Yeah, that's Logan Jones, and so those 2 guys have pure 4th round grades for me. There's actually a couple other guys that I think are going to be centers that have that are in that range. Trey Zune from Texas A&M is probably lower on this. I don't know where. My guess is going to be lower. Parker Brailsford, who's a pure center from Alabama. Again, lighter guy, 6'2", 290 pounds. But 3-year starter. 3-year starter at Alabama in that outside zone scheme. Really, really heady, smart, high IQ player. Just don't know if he has the body to come in and might need a year or so to get there and get bigger and get stronger. So right there, those are 4 guys center position I think can that are ready to go. Bryce Foster might be another one. He's a little bit bigger. He's 6'5", he's 310 pounds. He can probably play. He's a little bit more of a drive blocker, more of a people mover. Again, one of those guys who's just like, country boy strong, just like really
moved hay bales
really strong. moved hay bales with the flick of a wrist. Really good anchor versus the pass. Just can displace defensive linemen. These are all day 3 guys, man. I think these are all guys that can come and play. It just depends on what type of center you're looking for. Now, if Josh Myers is going to get the gig, but if he needed to win the gig, my guess is that they're going to look for someone who's a little bit more mobile. So that'd probably take Bryce Foster or the types of like Pat Coogan from Indiana, who's I know a big favorite of everyone. They're more, gap scheme kind of guys than they are at OZ or IZ. So So yeah,
Coogan's got that guard flexibility.
That's where
too.
we're at with those interior linemen.
Yeah, I like the mid to late round swing on the
does.
offensive
Yes.
lineman. We've talked about this before. We've spent so many high picks on the offensive line. It'd be nice to get one or two guys that were just, day 3 picks. It could be a 4th round guy, it could be a 6th round guy, whatever. Just so we're not pumping first round pick, 2nd round pick, 1st round pick, like onto this offensive line constantly. Kind of spread out our assets, really build up the rest of the team here. And I love the names that you kind of rattled off there. I hadn't really watched much of Coogan. Well, I shouldn't say I haven't watched much of Coogan. I watched a lot of Mendoza, but I had kind of penciled in Logan Jones and Foster as 2 guys, or sorry, not Foster, Slaughter, that I think would be interesting at that point in the draft, as well as the Pregnon Vega kind of conversation that we had a little bit earlier on in there.
Yeah.
JJ.
Now, there's another guy that I think will go a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to throw JJ in here real quick. JJ says, I like Royer a lot.
Go ahead.
Which one's Royer? I have no idea which.
He is. I believe he's talking Joe Royer, the Cincinnati. Who's a nice player too. I mean, he's probably a little too much like Jarrett for mine. I don't know if the fit is there.
Mm-hmm. Trying to switch over to my other panel. I don't know if I'll get it. Will it pop up? And it's not going to show it for some reason. No idea why not. I had it pulled up. You said there was another player that you were kind of thinking could be around. What were you?
Brian Parker II. He's a offensive lineman out of Duke. But followed a lot in the Graham Barton mold. Like, was left tackle. Was played all over the line for Duke. Settled in at left tackle last year, but he's probably going to be much more of an interior guy at the next level. I think he could be a center. I think he could follow Graham Barton's lead and really be a kind of an any scheme guard or center. I think this is the realm the late 3rd, early 4th, maybe even mid 4th. I think you can snag a guy like Brian Parker, kind of a limited athlete, but not very bad at anything, just like a solid B student, if you will.
It's all right. I can take that. It's on a roll, right? 85 and above. At least that's what it was in New York. We've hit the like a little almost hour and 20-minute mark. So I just want to go back, recap our poll question that I just screwed up this morning. I put picks 4, 16, 33, and 44. We had pick 2, but 50% of our chat wants to see edge, wide receiver, guard, safety as like the 4 positions we hit in a row. Next was best player available across all 4 picks, which is, I think, where you and I ultimately land. We just think edge and receiver are probably going to end up being the 2 towards the top there. Then, rounding out with 12 and 8% would be the Simpson pick. Anything that we either did or didn't go over that you wanted to touch base on again towards the end of the show here?
No, I think we touched on everything I wanted to talk about in the offensive side. I'll say this that we didn't touch on. It wouldn't surprise me if the Jets leave the running back room exactly as is, especially if Breece signs an extension. I think you can go into next year with your top 3 guys being your top 3 guys and Kene Nwangwu being running back 4. I think it's just one area that they don't have to address in the draft this year.
Yeah, and if you're going quarterback next year in 27, you could draft your running back at any point in next year's draft. You could burn a first on them if you really wanted to, if there was someone that you really fell in love with. Or maybe you have Breece locked in for long term and it's kind of more of a non-issue at that point in time. Well, boys and girls, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you tonight. I'll be back tomorrow, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock with O'Leary and Greenbean talking some Jets. Dom, what you got going on?
You know what? I have nothing on the immediate agenda. I'll be doing some stuff with Buffalo Jet fan and Dylan Terman talking Jets specific draft this week over the next weekend. I think on Thursday you can catch me. I think I'm doing a spot on Nick Shine show. I don't know what time.
I was with Nick last
Shine
night.
show. Oh, were you?
Yeah, we were talking a little ball last night.
Yeah. So outside of that, man, I'm just grinding, dude. I'm I got if you like written content, and if you like written draft content, I'm putting up a top 50 evals for the guys that I think are the top 50 best fits for the Jets over at Jets X Factor. And my next one will actually be posted tomorrow, so you can see it there.
You guys know Dom from here. Definitely check him out on Twitter. Check him out over on Jets X Factor. He is our Jets draft guru. He knows what the Jets are looking for, and he knows how to grade the players to kind of fit them into our little needs and wants and hopes and dreams. But boys and girls, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you. We'll be back here next week talking Jets at 9 o'clock. This is Jets Talk. Sign off. JETS.